Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Richard, this week we're going to do an entire series that's going to challenge people a little bit.
Why?
Well, it's going to sort of challenge the way...
I mean, that sounded scripted. Why? What do you mean it's going to challenge people?
Well, it's going to challenge them because we're going to kind of put some people to the test, perhaps, or put some theories or ideas or thoughts to the test a little bit about, what... Today we're going to talk about bullying, for example. And so...
challenging
Yes.
Okay.
Challenging
so
ideas, challenging
way.
thoughts, challenging what people tend to think, because we're gonna really talk about what things are, what things aren't, the way that we oftentimes kind of take if somebody says something mean to us, is that bullying,
right,
or is that just somebody being a jerk?
So we're gonna reframe some things this week.
Yeah.
Some discussions.
That's what I mean by challenging.
Okay. So we're going to reframe some of the discussions we have about our notions of what's normal, what's abnormal,
right.
You mentioned bullying.
Right.
Is it really bullying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. That sounds good to you?
With you. Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Well, it's good because it's good for us to be on the same page at least. Because if we weren't, that would be...
It's a good start.
A challenge. So today we're going to talk about an article that was published in Psychology Today. Right. It's called Bullying, The Need to Reframe the Debate. And it's written by Dr. Helen Goldberg.
Right.
Goldberg.
Right. The article is written by Goldberg, but in the article she addresses a new book that has come out.
Right. The book is called Sticks and Stones.
From the Child's Ditty. Yeah. Sticks and stones will break my bones.
Right.
Names will never hurt me.
Yes.
Okay.
And the book is written by Emily Brazelon.
Is it Bazelon? B-A-Z?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bazelon.
When I saw it, I almost wanted to say Brazelton because we know
from
Dr. Brazelton. But
famous people. Is he still alive?
I don't know. You caught me off guard by that question. I would have looked it up.
I was wondering about that the other day because we used to do his infant assessment when we did neonatology. Right. And I was talking about it the other day, and I wondered if he was still alive or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting guy.
Yes. But this book and this subsequent blog post or article starts to challenge the idea of bullying. Because, we will admit, because you and I have talked about this many times, that we do think that bullying is a significant issue. We think that bullying is more of an issue now, or a different type of issue now than it was when we were growing up, because of the availability of social media. Kids can't escape it anymore.
Right.
But what seems to have happened, and something I guess that we're going to kind of focus on today, is that we've started to overgeneralize what constitutes bullying.
Right.
What is bullying?
Right. Though it is more intense today, and you're right. Today it's the intensity and the what's the other word? It goes global.
Right.
It in our day, you might have a person or two or three bully you. Right. Today, you can have hundreds of people join in the conversation because of social media.
And even if they don't join in the conversation, there is the acute awareness that all of those people are seeing and witnessing and bystanders of the bullying.
If they're not the bully, they're the audience.
Right.
And in our year, prior to social media, bullying was more confined. Right. It was more contained.
Right.
Now it's hundreds of people can know that you're being bullied, which is part of the bullying process.
Right.
So yeah, it is different today than it was years ago.
Right. So with that in mind, there is the phenomenon of overgeneralizing bullying. We're kind of getting to the point where we refer to anything that is negative, anything that is confrontational, anything that is challenging, being viewed as bullying.
Right.
And I think that that's problematic for a number of reasons that we'll kind of get into as we're talking about today's topic.
Right. I know that in public schools today, not only public K-12 schools, you can do this in universities. All you have to do is make the accusation,
Right.
and there is an investigation.
Right.
And it's happened to a number of people I know, that all that a student or parent in K-12 education, all that a parent has to do is say, this teacher has bullied my child,
Right.
and it triggers an internal investigation of the teacher.
Right.
And the teacher doesn't have to know, has no right to know what the episode is, who makes the charges, or what the charge. It's just, you are being investigated now
Right.
for being a bully.
Right.
That's the kind of unintended consequence that the overgeneralization has led to.
Yeah.
That now all it takes is an accusation, even if it's not true.
Right.
You still get an investigation.
Right. And I think that there's a number of problems that this creates. Not just the overreactivity, hyperreactivity,
Right.
that it causes, but it also has sort of a paradoxical effect where if everything is bullying, then what happens? The crying wolf. If everything is bullying, what do you really respond to?
Right.
Because you can't respond to everything with the same intensity, with the same reaction and consequences, because if a student says attempts to turn in a paper and the teacher says that was due yesterday, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take it. And the student or the parent says, well, they're picking on my child because, he didn't have it done, so they're not allowing it, so he's being bullied. And they investigate that. They have to investigate that then at the same intensity and with the same integrity as they would if the teacher was, calling the student names and, pointing the student out and deliberately embarrassing the student in front of everyone. So it really waters down our ability to actually respond to real, authentic bullying.
What is really real bullying, that against which all children should be protected.
Sure, absolutely.
So nobody has any problem with that. That if it's legitimate and dangerous and destructive bullying, yes, we should put a stop to that.
Right.
The problem today is, and what Goldberg brings up in this article, is that children have to learn how to manage this.
Right.
Okay. One of the obligations we have as teachers and parents is to help children manage. And one of the problems that she sees is, besides the overgeneralization, one of the problems she sees is that adults get involved in the process.
Right.
And this has happened year after year after year at the high school that my children attended, is that it should be some issue between a student and a teacher. Sometimes parents need to get involved.
Right.
But when parents would get involved, it would become a legal...
Right.
Lawyers and police, the legal authorities would get involved in the discussion. And once that happens, then it becomes, I think she calls it a public debacle.
Right.
Because now you have engage the whole community, either the school community or even the community at large or beyond. And she brings up the suicide of a young teenage girl, where, yes, it was very unfortunate, but once it became a legal matter, then everybody lost control of the process, and it became a public debacle.
Right.
And I like the way she recommends that we handle these kind of things in the future.
Right. Yeah. So we do have to adjust and shift the way that we respond to these kinds of issues, because again, authentic, actual, real bullying does need to be managed and responded to and dealt with swiftly and appropriately. But we have to really be cautious with maybe what we will just call quasi-bullying. It's not really bullying. It's perceived perhaps as bullying.
Right.
But it's it just doesn't really meet the definition of what bullying really is.
That's right. And well, there are two issues. One is it really bullying, and how dangerous is it? Because these are also teachable moments. I mean, when my children come home and say, I was called this name, okay, that's bullying, but let's discuss that. Let's figure out, because the other obligation I have is that this is not the first time you're going to be picked on.
Right.
You also need to learn how to manage these kinds of things, because this is going to go into adulthood.
Right.
You're going to get the same kind of criticism, name calling, accusations in the workplace, in school. And you have to learn. I also have the obligation to teach my children how to handle these things.
Right.
Okay. So that's one issue. The second issue is that if we take it out of the hands of the kids and we turn it into you're a bully or a victim. Okay, and it's that dichotomy that she also discusses that I really like about this article. It's never that clear cut. In other words, if my child is called a name, was my child doing something that invited that name calling?
Right.
Because if that's the case, then I have to deal with that. Okay, so my child may not be the victim. My child may be doing something purposely or inadvertently that is inviting this criticism.
Right.
So I can't just protect her. I also have to find out what's really going on.
Right. And we need to, just to clarify that, because we're certainly not talking about, and they're certainly not here in the article talking about, individuals with like disabilities and issues that are outside of their control, that are just, sort of developmental or medical or psychological in nature. What we're talking about are, decisions and actions that this student, that kids make sometimes, that invite some of that. Right. And I'll change the word from bullying to criticism. Sometimes we do things that invite criticism. Right. And that criticism sometimes is more harsh than necessary, and we could, in fact, refer to that as bullying, or we could just refer to that as harsh criticism. Right. But I think what we're trying to convey here is that the important thing that we need to do as parents is we need to teach our kids how to cope with that. That's right. I mean, even as adults, we have to deal with heavy criticism. We have to deal with sometimes brutal, harsh criticism. That's right. And sometimes we have to deal with bullying. And so we need to be able to have or develop those skills to manage that. Because if we don't, if the only way that we ever deal with it is to have a parent or a teacher or someone else take care of it for us, then this is, again, one of those situations where we just fail to develop the skills that we need. Right. And there's this ticklish... This isn't in any way to blame the victim. Exactly. It's not saying that in any way. It's that we need to if we want to keep with those words, we need to teach the victim skills to protect themselves. That's right. You have to... Let me go out on this limb a little farther. I think we put children with handicapping conditions in a separate category. Right. Okay. Right. If you're not able to defend yourself, then it's black and white. Right. Okay. So we're not. I guess that's the distinction. That if you can't defend yourself for any reason, then I think that's a separate category. But for 90% of kids who are quote normal, okay, if you have some little quirk. And I think that's some eccentricity, okay? You're liable to get some criticism, okay? Now, the first step is how do you handle it? How do you immunize or inoculate your children against that criticism? Because they're going to continue getting it. Let's say a child is, we used to laugh about kids who had glasses. Okay, you get glasses and you get teased about that. Right. Okay, is that bullying? I don't think it is. And so we deal with it. We help our child deal with that. Let's say a child's overweight, grossly overweight. You're going to get teased about that. Somebody is going to find a way to tease you about that. Now, my role as a parent at that point is, do I say, well, you have to accept my child as she is, and if you
say anything at all that's critical, it's bullying, and I'm going to go after you.
Right.
And if I have to, I'm going to hire an attorney to go after you and your family. Okay, that's an inappropriate response. Okay, that's not the best way to deal with that kind of bullying. There are other better ways to do it, because you don't want to ever give a child the impression that it's okay, you can be as whatever you want. You can dye your hair whatever color you want. You can get as heavy as you want. You can wear whatever you want. And nobody's allowed to say anything, because people are going to say things to you. So it's okay to do those things, but just know you're inviting negative comments.
Right. And then build the skills to deal with the negative comments.
Because it's okay to have purple hair, but you're going to have to deal with the criticism.
Right. Because, again, not saying that what the other people are saying is okay.
That's right.
But it's that you can't stop it. You can't prevent. You can't create a world where no one ever says anything negative as it relates to that stuff.
It's not going to happen. I mean, there are certain jobs you can't have with purple hair. I'm sorry. That is the way the world works. As long as you're willing to accept that, I don't have any problem. There's no problem.
Right.
Okay, just know that if you have a man bun and tattoos and body piercings, you're not going to get a job at Brooks Brothers.
Right.
And as long as that's okay with you, that's fine. What worries me a little bit when I see parents take over the bullying for their children sometimes develop the notion that all I have to do is report to my mom and she'll take care of it. So I don't have, it relieves the child of making any decisions.
Right.
Okay. That I can do whatever I want, and I can, if I get criticized or called out on it, that we'll just yell bullying. I'm being bullied, and that'll take care of it. That does a disservice to children, because that's not how they're going to be able to function in an adult world.
Right. Yeah. It's it is a challenging, would that be the right word? Challenging scenario, because we want to protect as parents, but we also need to recognize what we can and can't protect from.
Right. And that it does exist, and it will exist. And what we have to do is provide children with the opportunity. I mean, what are we trying? We're trying to raise healthy adults.
Right.
Okay. So we have to raise our children to be able to manage in a world that does, where these things do occur.
Right.
Okay. And the last point she makes in the article is that we have to be talking more about character development and empathy.
Right.
Okay. So there are other issues that we should be discussing, and this whole issue of bully versus victim, it's never that clear cut.
Right.
There's a lot of work to do when the issue of bullying arises. And what I like about this article is when she talks about reframing the discussion.
Yeah.
Let's not make it good guys and bad guys. She was right, she was wrong. Let's figure out why. We all know that a bully is usually a person who has been bullied, either by parents or caretakers or something. So let's also remember that the bully is also a victim in some ways.
Right.
So
yeah,
I like the idea of opening this discussion up a little. Let's not be so sensitive about this, because both the bully and the victim need some attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So
good article.
All right. Told you guys it's going to be challenging.
It is a little more difficult. Yeah, you feel like you're walking on thin ice there for a while. Okay.
But it's all right.
We have to have these discussions, though. We need to keep these open.
That's true. So, all right. Well, that's it for today. So,
good.
Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.